Hey everybody, today we are going to learn how to create an alpha or transparency decal in Autodesk Maya and Adobe Photoshop. So this is another really easy texturing technique that can give a lot of impact to your final image. So we're going to start by creating a image, and we're going to just understand the basics of creating a map like this, and then we'll go into some more practical applications. So let's go ahead and create a pixeled image, and we'll do 512 by 512 for our starting point. And we'll go ahead and make it 72 dpi, and we'll go ahead and hit create. This is going to give us a power of 2 image, and it's also going to give us the ability to do some fun stuff. All right, so let's go ahead and fill this image with a gradient, and we'll just start with the default white to black. Actually, black to white. There we go. That will give us something to kind of work with. And I want you guys to go in your Photoshop file, and I'd like you to navigate to the Channels palette. Now, in the Channels palette, you are using an RGB document. So what you will notice is we have a red channel, a green channel, and a blue channel. Now, in our case, we just used a black and white color. So that's fine, but we don't see red, green, and blue at this point. We just see what we painted on our layers panel. You could have a multitude of layers on this panel. But what we're going to do in the channels panel, and if you can't find your channels panel, you can go to Windows and Channels right here, and that will activate it. We're going to go to the very bottom and create a new channel. And when we create a new channel, this is called Alpha Channel 1. And this is really cool. Alpha Channel 1 acts as a mask for your entire layer. So if I were to go ahead and create a white square here, that means anything that's white will show up, and anything that's gray will be slightly see-through, and anything that's black will not show up. So let's go ahead just for reference, and let's also create a mid-tone gray box here, and maybe we'll make a little darker gray box here. All right, so what's going to happen is this is going to actually, if we click on RGB again, this is going to mask out this image in using those different tones. So let's go ahead and save this. Now, to get this to work, we have to save it with an item that has an alpha channel, so an image format. I like to go ahead and use TIFFs or Targas, but you're welcome to use anything such as a PNG, a Targa, a TIFF. JPEGs, though, for instance, do not have alpha channels. So we'll go ahead and use a TIFF, and we'll call this Alpha Map 1, or just Alpha Map is fine. And we'll go ahead and put it in our 3D model folder here that I've been using. All right, now that we have that, let's go ahead and open Autodesk Maya and create a square. And again, I'm assuming that you've already done all your UV mapping. So I'm using a square because a square plane is essentially already UV'd out in the final scene. And we're going to go ahead and take that plane, and we're going to apply a new material to it. In this case, we'll apply a Lambert. And in our Lambert, we're going to go ahead and plug in the color texture file next to the checkerboard, a file texture. We're going to click on the yellow folder and navigate to that 3D model folder I had created and put in our alpha map. And you can already see that it's alpha mapping out what we see. So we see the image in the layers underneath it, but we don't see the excess square. So if I double click on that and I hit 6 on my keyboard, voila, we have an alpha plane. And this is a really cool thing. You can actually see I have a little bit of clipping at the top, but overall I have a pretty nice alpha plane right here. So the really cool things about alpha planes are if we go ahead and cast shadows or use specific types of light, we can actually cast shadows through them. So even though this is a square and it's removing and masking out some areas, if I were to go and create a light, for instance, a directional light, and let me scale this up so you guys can see, I'll hit T here and I'll point my directional light through my alpha channel. And I'm going to go ahead and turn on my ray trace shadows. And if I use a renderer such as Mental Ray, which is a ray trace renderer, and I hit render, you can see it actually casts the shadows of the mask, which is a really cool thing. All right, so where could we use this? Well, you could go ahead and make items such as grass here. So let's go and open up a new file. So I'm going to go to my file open here, and I'm going to navigate to my grass folder. And I have different various types of grass, but let's go to grass 1 and open the color map. So this is the color map for grass 1. And you can see what the artist did is they went ahead and put green behind it. And if we go to channels, there's actually an embedded alpha channel within the RGB. So they did the same thing where they created the new layer and then used the shape of the grass and painted it white and masked out the rest of the area with black. So if we were to apply this in Photoshop, or excuse me, in Maya, what would we get? Well, let's go ahead and open a new scene. What we would get is essentially, if we started with 2 planes or a singular plane here, and we apply our texture to it, if I hit 6 here, what we would get is this. And it gives us the illusion of grass. Now this is really easy to apply and to recreate. So I'll delete that just to show you. And we'll go ahead and we'll create a 90-degree plane. We'll put on this plane a Blinn or Lambert. It's up to you. You can use a Blinn. And we'll load a color texture and navigate to a specific file. So I'll go to my 3D models. I have a grass folder here. And I will load, and I have all sorts of different types of grass that I had found. I'll load this grass. It's a little different. And you can see that I need to rotate this. And so that's -90. There we go. And we're getting a little bit of specularity shift. So let's go back, and if you don't know about specular maps, I have a great video on specular maps, but we're going to enter a specular mask, and we're going to enter that within our, you can see it's gray, so it's going to be a little see-through, and now just the grass appears. And we can also enter all sorts of different other types of maps, like a bump map or a normal map. We can play around with maybe glow or something to that nature if it's some sort of alien grass. But if I hit Control D and duplicate this and just subtly rotate this grass and duplicate it a few times, what happens is actually rather neat. We actually get the illusion of depth and the illusion of dimensionality on the grass. And I'm going to turn on my two-sided lighting so you can see this a little better. But when I render, I get the appearance of grass. And again, this is all alpha channeled out, and realistically we're making this with planes. So if I wanted this grass to bend, so let's delete a few of these just so I can show you. If I want this grass to bend, what I could do is I could add a deform nonlinear bend deformer to it. And we'll just kind of rotate this up, and we could bend it. And nonlinear bend deformers are really cool because the more you rotate them and the more you play around with them, the cooler kind of shapes you could get. So you could get like bent grass or floating grass and so forth. And then the more important part is when you delete all by type and that deformer goes away, you have a cool bent kind of grass form. So again, to create a transparency map or a decal, you would have a color layer or color layers. You would create a new channel in your channels palette, and you would paint white, black, or gray to mask that item out, so what you would see on the foreground. You would export this file as a Targa, TIFF, or PNG or Photoshop file. I prefer Targas or TIFFs. And you would load this file into Maya, and Maya, if you load it into the color first, will automatically load that alpha channel into the transparency. And that's how you get this look here after you hit 6 on your keyboard. If you go ahead and right click on transparency, by the way, and hit break connection, you'll see that originally green backdrop that we had on the file. And that is essentially how you make a transparency map. So go ahead and creatively use that in your project. It really helps when you're doing a project that has a lot of depth, or environments or trees where you need to make tons of little leaves, but you don't want to spend a lot of polygon count. It's actually a really cool method. So look forward to seeing your results.